What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here with SpeakingLifestyle.com, and I want to talk about how to get booked on more stages. And in this video, I'm going to show you three different things. We're going to talk about what you must stop doing as a speaker if you want to get on stages. We're going to talk about how to create a repeatable process to get gigs. And then the third thing I want to talk about is just getting gigs consistently. So I'm going to show you everything, how to systematize the process, get gigs consistently, everything. Now, I want you to check your email first, because in your email, or first or last, doesn't really matter, but in your email, I sent you a few videos. I sent you like a speaker contract, like a video on 22 different ways to find events, all sorts of things. So go to your email and check that out. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen like several videos, several sales videos, webinars and all that, where I sit down, I'm all excited to watch a thing because they promise the world. And you're like, yeah, let's go. Like they promise the whole world about what it is you're going to learn, all sort of stuff. You're sitting there down with your tea, your coffee, and you're all excited. And then what do? They keep talking about themselves for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Oh, let me tell you my story. I was once poor, now I'm rich. And you're like, dude, come on, man. Like you're sitting there, you're pissed off because the person they're talking about themselves for too damn long, you're sitting there pissed off, like, come on, get to the freaking point. So I'm not going to do that in this video, like not at all. All I'm really going to tell you is that we literally get speakers booked on stages. That is what we do. That's all you really need to know about what it is we do. So let's just move on. Let's just get straight to the point, to point number one. So point number one, remember what I said. Point number one is what you must stop doing as a speaker, like just things you must stop doing if you want to get booked on stages. Now, I want to tell you a quick little story about my past in general. So like here, you see that little sexy beast right there, the sexy beast in the middle. So for those of you that don't know, I used to be an illusionist, mentalist, and I used to go into restaurants and I would perform in restaurants. I'd walk around table to table. I perform for people and they like while they're waiting for their food and they're sitting there like, oh my goodness, oh man, that was the most amazing thing. And they're freaking out and they're like, holy crap. And so when I would like really impress people, I mean, I would get gigs from it. But the problem is I didn't really know the business side. And so one day, this one guy, he actually gave me his business card. I mean, he's like, oh my goodness, holy crap. Oh man. Like they're freaking out, right? And so this guy gave me his business card. The problem is at the time, I wasn't really business minded in general. So he gave me his business card and I didn't really know what to do. I'm like, okay, cool, a business card. But I'm like, what do I say to this guy? Because he told me to call him. Now, I had a friend who was really business minded, this guy named Rich. And Rich, he was really business minded, an entertainer, like really good and everything, but he was way more business minded than me. So he simply said, give me the card. And I'm like, what are you going to say to this guy? And so he literally just takes the card and he calls this guy, like this literally all he did. He calls the guy. I'm like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? And so this guy, he picks up the phone and this guy's like, hello, Rondi speaking. And so my friend, is actually kind of funny. My friend, he acted as my manager. So my friend, he's like, hi, Ronnie, this is Rich. You saw my guy, Benji Bruce, at the Rock Bottom Brewery restaurant the other day. What did you think? I mean, do you have any events coming up where you need some entertainment or anything? And so the guy, Ronnie, on the other end, he's like, actually, yeah, I do. My kid's birthday party is, and my friend just cut him off. He's like, oh, no. Oh, no. He's like, you've seen Benji. You've seen what this guy can do. You want to bring him in for the big guns. You bring him in for the corporate events. You want to bring this guy in for the people that you really want to impress. And he's like talking me up big time. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, he was like talking me up on a whole new level to this guy. And then what happened naturally? Well, what happened naturally is over time, I got booked. Like my friend literally booked me. So I was happy. I'm sitting there, I'm doing my happy dance, you know, the happy dance, the wiggle wiggle. So that's kind of what I was doing. I was doing my little happy dance. And it was all because my friend, he simply just reached out to that guy. He got me booked. And so naturally, of course, you're going to be happy. And so that's when I realized that the best marketers win. It really comes down to that. The best marketers win. You can have a great message. You can have a great story. You can have a best-selling book. It doesn't matter. It always comes down to one thing: the best marketers win. And you need to truly get that through your head before we continue, because once I understood that, I studied up like a mofo. I mean, I'm sitting there reading books, buying courses, all sorts of things, because you know what they say about the whole knowledge thing, like, you know, you got to sharpen your axe and everything. So I'm sitting there just buying all kinds of books and everything, sharpening my axe, sharpening my mind, because I knew that's what was going to actually get me booked on stages. And that's what you really have to do in terms of just getting booked. You have to understand the best marketers win. So that brings me back to this whole thing of what you must stop doing. When you sharpen up your axe, you're going to realize a couple things. So first things first, I remember I was sitting down on the computer and I'm looking at a speaker magazine. Is Speaker Magazine is talking about all kinds of different things. It has all kinds of headlines. It's like what to do in an active shooter situation, the best ways to travel as a speaker, social media marketing tips for speakers. It had all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, holy crap, like all kinds of headlines, what to do in an active shooter situation. I'm reading all these headlines. And the whole time I'm thinking like, what the hell? Like you're sitting there, you look at all these headlines. I'm thinking this is why speakers don't get booked. You're sitting there, you're confused as all hell about what you should do. I mean, should you create a podcast? Everyone says create a podcast. You know, if you have a podcast, everyone's doing it nowadays. That's the future. Audio is the future with the echo and all that sort of stuff. Create a podcast, but not just a podcast. You know, you got to do more than a podcast. You also got to have video content. I mean, YouTube is like one of the biggest social media channels out there. You got to have video content. So start producing that. But wait, there's more. You got to start doing a workshop. Oh my goodness. You got to put people in a room. You got to sell people in that room and you got to sell products in the workshop. Oh, but wait, you got to do more than just that. It's not just workshops. You got to actually get paid speaking gigs. As a speaker, you got to get paid for it. So you got to do all sorts of stuff. But wait, there's more. You got to do more. You got to actually write a best-selling book. Oh my goodness, you got to have a best-selling book because I mean, hey, you know, if you have authority, you got a best-selling book. But wait, there's more. Not only do you have to do that, but you also got to actually create, I mean, you're an expert, so you got to create an online video course because, you know, you're an expert. And this whole time you're like, damn, there's all this stuff that you got to do. And you're sitting there, you're just confused. You're pissed off. You're like, damn, that's a lot of stuff that I got to do. Like literally everything. So the only thing that's happening, you're like, my brain is literally what's going on inside of your brain. And so secretly you're crying your eyes out because you're like, damn, this sucks. So there's just, you're doing a little too much. But then on the outside, you're sitting there, you're smiling. You got your happy face on because, I mean, you know, when people say, how are you doing? You're like, yeah, everything's great. But secretly, you're like, damn, this sucks. Like, I don't know how to get gigs. I don't know how to get on stages. I mean, should I create a podcast? Should I do video content? Like, you don't know what to do. And so you're sitting there, you're trying to actually you're trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, but you ain't even got a penny yet. I mean, you're struggling just because you don't really know what to do. There's too much going on. There's all this stuff that's going on. And so I want you to understand that you're doing too much. You're doing too many things. That is why you're struggling. You're trying to create the podcast, trying to do video content, you're trying to write a book, trying to do a video course. You're trying to do all this stuff. You're doing too many things. That is why you're struggling. And so let's take, for example, video content. Let's say you want to actually make some video content for YouTube or whatever, because remember, I mean, if you create video content, you'll be the authority. Then when you're the authority, everyone's going to hire you and book you as a speaker. So let's talk about if you were to create video content, what all goes into just that, let alone paid speaking gigs and podcasting and video courses. Let's just talk about video content in general. What goes into that thing? So really, there's a few things that you're going to have to do if you want to create video content. I mean, one, you got to come up with ideas. Two, you got to film the video. Three, you got to edit the video. Then you got to create the thumbnail. You got to shoot the photos. You got to promote, which means you're going to write the email, post on social media, all kinds of different stuff. This is just for video content. I mean, you got to sit down like, okay, where are you going to come up with the ideas? Are you going to go to Quora? Are you going to look at Facebook? Like, where are you going to come up with ideas on what videos you're going to create? That's going to take some time. You got to now write it down in a notebook or something like Asana or something. You got to write it down, all your ideas. Then you got to film the video. What camera are you going to use? What audio? Are you going to like set it up the right way? I mean, you got to film the videos. Then you got to edit the videos. So now you got to go into something like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere. You got to go in there and you got to edit the videos, which is going to take more time. Then you got to create a thumbnail for the video because, you know, thumbnails, that's what gets people to click. So if you have a good thumbnail, people are going to want to click on the video as well. So you got to shoot the photos. You got to edit the photos. Then you got to promote the damn thing. You finally created the whole thing. Now you got to promote it. You got to write an email. You got to post on social media. You got to do all this stuff just for video content. And that's just one video. Now you got to do it over again. You got to keep doing it over again. So with all this stuff that you're doing in order to create this video content, it's kind of like, where in the world are you going to find the time to do anything else? Where are you going to find the time to actually get yourself booked on stages, to do the paid gigs? I want you to imagine this. Imagine there's a start line, then there's the finish line. Now, at the starting line, there are things that you can do. There's things like podcasts, creating video content, writing a book, getting paid gigs, doing a workshop, doing online courses. There's all sorts of things you can do. And on the right side at the finish line, that's where the money's at. So if you do any one of these things right, you can make money off it. Any one of them. I mean, you create the podcast. If you do that right, you become Joe Rogan. Poof, you get a gang load of money. You create video content. You do that right. You get a gang load of money. Paid gigs, a gang load of money. So each one of these, you go to the finish line. You can get a ton of money, but only if you go to the finish line. So now what happens nowadays, everyone's doing all these things. So you start out with a podcast. You're like, you know what? I'm going to start doing the podcast. So you start going. You're working. You create a podcast episode. Oh, I got to create video content now. So you create some videos. All right, let me do some YouTube videos. Oh, you're going to write a book. Well, a book takes too damn long. So you're like, okay, well, I'm writing my book. And then you do paid gigs. Okay, you're doing things for paid gigs, doing outreach, cold calling, cold email. Then you do workshops, but you don't really like workshops. Nobody really likes workshops. So then all of a sudden you're like, let me do an online course. You start working with online course. You're doing all sorts of stuff with an online course. You haven't reached the money in any one of these. So you're sitting there with your sad little puppy face. You're like, oh man, because you tried all of them. And I guarantee most of you guys are probably doing most of these. You probably have a podcast. You're probably creating video content, doing live streams and all sorts of stuff. Maybe you're working on your book. Maybe you're trying to get paid gigs. Maybe not the workshops, but then you're probably thinking about the online course. You're trying to do all these things. And because you're trying to do all these things, you haven't actually reached the end. You haven't gotten the money in any one of them. So let's do that again. But let's say, all right, start line, finish line on the left side. You got the podcast on the right side. That's where all the money's at. So if you reach the money, if you get to the finish line, then bam, you get the money. So let's start out with, let's start out with paid gigs. So you start doing things for paid gigs. You start doing outreach. You're like, all right, let's go. Let's get it. All right, let's go. Let's get it. Boom, you hit the money because you did everything right. Now, what happens when you hit the money? Well, you're happy. You're sitting there, you're happy as all hell. You do the happy dance. You do the wiggle because you're like, yeah, you did everything to actually get paid gigs. You put in your CRM, you put in the lead score, the sales cadence, the sales pipeline. You started reaching out to events. You started pitching them. You started doing everything to actually get the paid gigs, and you started getting good at it. So you actually got paid gigs. And when you do that, you do the happy dance. You do the wiggle. Now, at that point, it's kind of like, okay, well, let me move on to the next thing because you've gotten your process down in terms of how you're going to get paid gigs. Now it's a matter of let me focus on something else. So let's focus on the online course. Let's create an online course. Okay, so you start doing that. All right, let's go. Let's get it. Let's do ads. Let's create the course. Let's do this. Oh, yeah, let's get it. And boom, you hit the money. You get the money. Then what happens? Well, naturally, you're going to be happy. You're going to do the happy dance. You're going to do the wiggle because you finally got some money from the efforts that you put in. And so this is all because you just literally said, first, I'm going to start with paid gigs. Then I'm going to do an online course. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do this. And so that's what happens when you actually focus on one thing. That's what happens. You need to learn to get focused. That is how you're going to actually get booked on stages. I understand a lot of people want the tactics and techniques. I get it, but you need to stop doing everything and start doing one thing at a time. Focus on one thing. Say to yourself, do I want to just get paid gigs or do I want to just sell an online course? Because each one of those things, a podcast, video content, paid gigs, workshops, every one of those things requires you to do something different and it requires you to master different skills. If you want to sell an online course, think about all the things you have to do. You have to learn how to do copywriting because you got to write an ad. You got to learn how to set up the Facebook pixel if you're going to actually do the Facebook ads. You got to set up the pixel. You got to maybe set up a Google AdWords pixel. And then you got to write the copy. Then you got to make sure you have an opt-in page. And then you got to make sure you have that autoresponder set up. And you got to do all this stuff just for an online course. So it's like you have to stop doing everything and start doing one thing. Focus on just one thing at a time. Now, I want to point out that this guy here, Dave Davlin, he's actually a SpeakPro Academy member. He's one of the speakers inside of our programs. And it's kind of, I don't want to read this whole thing here, but he's like, look, many of you don't know me. I'm not in the group that often. I started Benji's program was about 3 years ago. And he's like, I was frustrated. He wasn't frustrated with my program, by the way. He's like, I just left the management company because they didn't deliver. And they even were stealing my leads. So he was really frustrated with the management company. Now, after he kind of went through the program, what happened was, let's point this out here. Right here, he says, look, this year I set a goal to book a minimum of 50 events. That meant booking 4 events each month, and 2 of those months, damn, this thing is so damn small, I can barely see the damn thing. Basically, he booked 5 events. He got 5 events within the week. Okay. And so I want you to point out what Dave is doing that's different than everybody else is Dave is strictly focusing on outreach. And I told him this from the very get-go. When he first emailed me, I said, look, don't go about writing a book. Don't go about creating all this podcast stuff, all this content. I'm telling you right now, focus. Focus on one thing. If you want to get paid gigs, then you have to do outreach. You focus on one thing and do that until you reach 200,000 or a quarter million or whatever. Then you can start doing something else, but you focus. The reason Dave was able to book 5 events within 1 week is because he focused strictly on one thing. And so a lot of people, they think that they're actually missing the tactics and the techniques. They think, oh, well, what do I say to events? How do I find the right events? They think they're missing tactics and techniques. That's not what you're missing. The tactics and techniques are easy as all hell. Go check your email. You'll see 22 different ways to find events. You'll see everything in the freaking free content that I give out. You can get yourself booked. Those are tactics and techniques. What you need to do is you need to get focused, get insanely focused on what it is you want and the specific activities you have to do to make that thing happen. That's what you have to do from the very get-go. Now let's talk about number 2, creating a repeatable process to get gigs. You need to create a repeatable process to get gigs because it really, really sucks when you wake up every single day and you just don't know what to do. You're just like, well, you don't know what to do. So you need to learn how to create a repeatable process to get gigs. So I'm going to show you our pipeline and everything real quick. But if you ask most speakers, like I guarantee if you go up to most speakers, say like, hey man, how do you get gigs? Ask most speakers how they get gigs. I guarantee 90% of them will say this. They'll kind of look confused. Maybe someone will try to be confident, but they'll be like referrals. I guarantee it. 90% of them will say that referrals. The reason why they say this is because they don't know how to get gigs. They don't know the process. They have no idea what to do. So the only thing to do is to wait for someone to recommend them, to literally wait. That is most people's process for getting gigs. It's they don't know what the hell they're doing. And so you can't have this, referrals type of response. And so you need to know exactly how to create a repeatable process to get gigs, which I'll show you in just a second, our pipeline. But look at this. Remember my friend Rich, the guy over there? What did he do? What did he do to actually get me booked? It's really simple. He did outreach. He literally just reached out to the guy. He just called him. You can call or email. It doesn't really matter. But all you have to do to get booked is you do outreach. You have to reach out to events if you want to get on stages. And so most speakers are sitting down, they act like they're on stages. They're acting like they're getting booked on stages. But in reality, if you were to actually see what they were doing on a day-to-day basis, they sit there all bored. Well, not bored. They're sitting there, well, probably bored too, but they're sitting there probably stressing out and all sorts of things because they just don't know what to do. Like if you ask them, let's say you go into a Facebook group and you say, hey guys, how do you get gigs? They're like referrals, or they have all kinds of responses and they pretend. Everyone's faking it online. Everyone's pretending. But in reality, like when the cameras are off, then you see who they really are. Now they're sitting there confused. They're like, oh, what do I do? And so you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that person who's struggling in that way. You need to think in terms of systems. You need to have a very systematic way of thinking in general in terms of step A, step B, or step 1, step 2. You need to think like that. Otherwise, if you don't think in terms of systems, you're literally going to be confused as to what you should be doing. Like literally, I kid you not, you're going to wonder like, what should I be doing on a day-to-day basis? So you don't want to get confused. Here's our process. Here's our pipeline. This is what they call a pipeline. A pipeline is just literally a process. It's like step 1, you do this, step 2, you do this, step 3, you do that, so this is our pipeline. And so notice the pipeline is literally step-by-step process. It's pretty simple. At the very beginning, that's when you find the events. And you're going to email them, then you're going to bring them through the pipeline of a lead, questions, quote, contract, close. And you follow this process every single time. With every event you contact, you follow this pipeline all day, every day, nonstop, all day, every day. That's literally what you do. As a pipeline, like I said, is really simple. Like you start out from the very get-go in terms of I'm going to prospect. You found an event, you put it into a list. Then you're going to send email number 1. If they don't respond, you're going to follow up. If they don't respond to that, you're going to follow up. If they do respond, then you're going to actually pitch them, hey, I'm the greatest speaker alive. And then that's literally that's like the entire process that you're going through. It's like step number one, you find a list of events. Like you build up this list of events. And like I said, go check your email for the 22 different ways you can find events. But you build up like this list of events. You're going to send out email number one. Email number one, all it really says is like, hi, so-and-so, I was wondering who hires speakers for your events. After you get a response to that, they're like, I do, or so-and-so does, then you're going to pitch them. Then you're going to be like, hey, I'm the greatest speaker alive. Here's my website. And so then you're going to pitch them. And then what's going to happen, a couple of things. Either one, they're going to be like, no, you're dumb. We don't like you. And they'll say no. Or two, they'll just ignore you. Three, they'll essentially say, well, what do you charge? And so if they ignore you, there's things you can do about that. If they say no, there's things you can do about that. But I want to talk about the next stage. If they're like, well, what do you charge? Well, what do you charge? It's kind of like it goes on to that next part of the incoming lead. Now you turn them into an incoming lead within your CRM, within your pipeline. And I don't want to go into details about CRM or any of that. If you don't know what a CRM is, just Google it. But you're going to put them into CRM. They're going to now be an incoming lead. After that, the next stage is you're going to ask questions about their event. So you're like, well, what do you charge? You say, well, first, I need to know a little bit about your event. How many people are going to be there? Where's it going to be at? Blah, blah, blah. You have like a list of these questions that you just systematically put in place. After they answer that, you're going to quote your fee. Hey, it's going to be $1 million. So you're going to quote your fee. After that, you're going to send the contract. Here, sign the contract, 50% deposit, so on, so on. And within each one of these, you're going to also follow up. So let's say you quote your fee. Hey, it's going to be $1 million, and they don't respond. So it's kind of like, oh, well, what do you do at that point? You should have a follow-up in place. Or let's say you send the contract out. Hey, here's the contract. And they don't respond. They don't reply back with the contract. What do? Well, you follow up. You have all these emails in place, all these templates in place that you're going to put within your sales process that's going to help you get booked. And this is a repeatable process, something you do over and over and over again, all the way until you get booked on a stage. So that's literally what it is you're doing. You need to build systems. These systems include email templates to where you know when to email, like to where you figure out which events pay, all sorts of stuff. You need to systematize everything. Everything in your business, you want to systematize it. Like I said, the email templates. You need to have email templates for everything. Knowing when to email, that's called a sales cadence. That's just like when you say, well, when do I follow up? You shouldn't be asking yourself that. You should know when you're going to follow up because you built a sales cadence that says, okay, if they don't respond within 5 days, I'm going to follow up. If they don't respond within 10 days of that, I'm going to follow up. You create a sales cadence that tells you when you need to actually follow up. You need to figure out which events pay. Like that's a lead score. So there's all sorts of things where you're going to systematize everything. All you're really going to do to systematize stuff, you're going to put it in like a Google document. It's literally all you have to do. It's kind of like, let's say the ways to find events. And I remember when I was actually trying to find different ways to find events. And what would happen is I would find a way to find an event, and then I would just kind of wake up the next day, and then I'd be like, well, how do I find events again? I'm like, Benji, stop being a dummy. How about you just put it all into a Google document whenever you think of a way to find an event? Put it into a Google document, and then whenever you wake up the next day, you can just look at the Google document and pick one of those methods. And so that's what I started doing. So you want to systematize everything. If you learn of a different way to find an event, put it into a document. I mean, we have those documents for you, but you're essentially just going to put it into a document. You systematize everything. That is how you're going to get booked consistently in general. And so you got to start systematizing things like keywords to find events, qualities of events that hire you, email templates to common responses, questions that people ask about their events. Everything. You are going to systematize everything. Like I said, like it's like when, let's say you go to Google, you're going to use Google to type in certain keywords like award banquet or gala or conference or sales event. So you're going to go to Google, you're going to type in these keywords, and then all of a sudden you're going to take those keywords, you're going to put it into a document. That way you don't have to rethink every single time you do it. Qualities of an event that hires you. That's considered a lead score. Email templates to common responses. People always respond in similar ways. They say things like, well, what do you charge? And it's like, oh, we got to send this to a committee. And, oh, we only hire industry related speakers. Like people have certain responses, and you need to have a template for each one of these responses. Like you just got to systematize everything. Like the questions that you ask about their event. events. These questions are questions that you're constantly asking people when they come to you saying, what do you charge? You ask them questions about their event. Instead of you having to type it out every single time, all you need to do is you copy and paste the question. And that's all you're doing. You systematize your entire business. That's what you have to start doing. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to literally sit there confused as to what you should be doing. So you have to systematize everything. So it's like, I want you to look at Betsy. So Betsy, once again, she's a SpeakPro Academy member. And notice how she said, January, I hit a new monthly target of booking 6 speaking engagements and had my highest paid speaking month to date. Not sharing this to impress you, but rather to impress you that Benji system work. All right. So basically it's like, look, she got 6 speaking engagements that month and also got her highest paid speaking engagement. What did she do? She put her sales process in place. She put the pipeline in place, the email templates, the sales cadence, the lead score. She has a system. She used a system, literally just copied our system, bam, put it into place and just repeats it over and over and over and over. That's all you're doing. You repeat the system over and over and over. Now I want you to look at the hashtag that she has. Hashtag do the work. That is insanely important, okay? Notice that hashtag because I emphasize this like crazy. So hashtag do the work, which leads me to number 3, getting gigs consistently. Because anyone can get booked one time. Anyone can do that. I mean, you just get a referral, whatever. Anyone can get booked one time. But how do you fill up your schedule? How do you get 50 events per year? How do you fill up your schedule with the paid gigs? So that's a whole other thing. So let's talk about getting gigs consistently. You see, most speakers, 90, well, no, I won't say 90, but a lot of speakers, they're sitting there and they're chilling. They're chillaxing, like chilling. They're like, all right, man. And what they expect to do, they expect to get gigs consistently by doing one thing. All right. Tell me if you heard about this from several speakers, or maybe you're like this, who knows? But here's what speakers say. Speakers are like, I want you to book gigs for me and I'll give you a 25% commission. How many speakers are like that? I can't tell you how many speakers are like that because there's a gang load of speakers like that. I mean, I think almost every speaker from the very get-go starts out like that because it's a mindset that you have. You want someone to do all the work for you while you're sitting there chilling, doing a whole lot of nothing, and you get all the money. I think pretty much everyone kind of starts out this way. And until you kind of get out of this mode of, oh, other people are going to book gigs for me, and then I'll just do the gig and I'll give them a percentage on, until you get out of that mindset, you won't actually book gigs. Nobody's going to do the work for you. Nobody's going to book gigs for you in any way, especially if you're a beginner. If you're freaking Les Brown, if you're Tony Robbins, if you're Gary Vaynerchuk, yes, someone will probably book gigs for you. But you are not Tony Robbins. You are not Gary Vaynerchuk. You are not Les Brown. So get out of this stupid ass mindset of book gigs for me and I'll give you a 25% commission, because you absolutely will fail as a speaker. You will never get gigs consistently. All right, that's enough of my little rant there. So here's the thing. You have to go to war. That's what it comes down to. Like, you have to have this mindset of, I'm going to war. I'm going to contact so many damn events. It's going to be ridiculous. That's the type of mindset that you need to have. You see this pipeline here? Remember the pipeline from earlier? You got to first prospect, find the leads, you send the email pitch and all that sort of stuff. That's the pipeline. Now, what do you got to do with this pipeline? Well, with the pipeline, you got to feed the beast. You feed the beast. And so that's what you're doing. The prospecting right there, that's where you're finding all the events. You got to sit down all day, every day and just contact events. Like literally all day, every day, you're finding new events. So when one event says, I'm sorry, you cost too much, or I'm sorry, we've already had our speakers, we already hired them, or I'm sorry, we're just not interested, it doesn't matter, because you are constantly feeding the beast with new events. You're constantly finding new events. You're contacting new events. So any one of them doesn't matter. And so when you contact enough and you contact them the right way, it's inevitable that you're going to get booked on a stage. You have to feed the beast. And you don't do that by sitting down thinking someone's going to book gigs for you. Feed the beast. So here's a member from our SpeakPro Academy. He's posting inside the group. I want you to notice what he's posting there. Like, notice how he's posting certain numbers for the day and everything. He's like, look, numbers for the day. He's sent 10 emails and 12 emails returned, 1 gig booked, and all. And by the way, he's like sending these like nonstop. So it's like, you might be saying that doesn't make sense. He sent 10, but 12 got returned. No, like what he did is, like, throughout the days, the weeks, the months, and all, he's been sending emails nonstop. And so notice he sent, 91 emails that day, and he got 9 responses that day, 1 opportunity, 72 emails sent, 7 responses, 1 opportunity, 1 gig booked, 71 more emails, and 44 more emails, and another one he had 100. And so it's like he's doing the work. He's feeding the beast. He's sending out all these emails. He's doing cold email. He's doing outreach in order to get booked. He's feeding the beast. That is why he's getting booked. If you aren't feeding the beast, if you're sitting down waiting for referrals, if you're sitting down waiting to find a speaker agent, a bureau, someone who's going to get gigs for you, if you're sitting down and you're sitting there like, let me just go on this one of these websites where I can just post my bio and all that, and then they're going to book me. If you're not feeding the beast, you will not get booked. That's just what it comes down to. I know it sounds like common sense, but let me tell you something. Unless you're doing what someone like Joel is doing here, where he's constantly contacting these events, you simply will not get booked, and you won't get booked consistently. And so you must contact events on a daily basis. Literally. You have to contact events on a daily basis if you want to get booked consistently. If you're not doing this, if I can literally, like, imagine if I were to have, if someone were to put a camera inside of your house or wherever you work, someone puts a camera there and it's literally broadcasting 24/7 live stream. Would someone be able to see you doing the work? Would someone be able to see, oh, this person's contacting them nonstop all day, every day? Or are they going to see you just bullshitting? Are they going to see you just, oh, let me watch Netflix. Oh, let me go check Facebook real quick and let me respond to someone's question inside the speaker group. And how do you get gigs? Oh, I'm going to respond referrals. And you're watching Netflix. You're not doing a damn thing. You're not working. So you got to understand, like, you got to contact events on a daily basis. A lot of you guys, you're simply not doing the work. You're literally just not doing the work. Contact events on a daily basis and keep track of numbers. You want to keep track of certain numbers, not all numbers. You're keeping track of certain numbers. And so it keeps you focused. So when you keep track of certain numbers, you're essentially focused on a specific result, because you're like, here's the number I'm going to focus on. And then that's all you focus on. And so the numbers, they keep you focused. So remember Joel over here. Joel, notice the numbers that he was keeping track of. He was keeping track of certain numbers. You don't want to keep track of what's called vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are metrics that are designed to be impressive instead of useful. Vanity metrics are things like followers, like, oh, let me Instagram followers, and subscribers, how many YouTube subscribers I got, how many likes, how many comments I have. These are vanity metrics. Vanity metrics, they literally don't do anything. I mean, it's like they leave you broke. That's what vanity metrics do. Vanity metrics, they seem impressive, they seem useful, but they don't do anything in any way. So if your number of followers is bigger than your bank account, then you're building your business wrong. That's what I tell people all the time. Like, everyone's sitting there focusing on likes, comments, Instagram followers, and followers in general, and subscribers. And I say, like, look, man, why on earth are you trying to focus on 1 million followers? You need to focus on $1 million. If your number of followers is bigger than your bank account, then you're building your business wrong. You do not focus on vanity metrics. They will keep your focus on the wrong things. You'll sit there, you'll be like, wow, oh my goodness, I got 100,000 followers today. Yay! All right, let me go to the welfare office. That's literally what vanity metrics do to you. So if your number of followers is bigger than your bank account, then you're building your business wrong. You got to focus on the right things, focus on the right numbers. That is how you're going to actually get gigs consistently, is by focusing on the right numbers. These are things like leads, how many you contacted, how many responded, opportunities, and and obviously gigs booked. And so if you keep track of these numbers, these are the numbers that's going to help you out. Like, leads are basically the number of events that you find. Contact is basically you sent out email number 1. You've contacted them. Responded is like, well, did they respond to you? So that's responded. Opportunities is, well, okay, they responded, but they responded with interest. So it's kind of like, well, what do you charge? So it's like they responded with interest. And then gig booked, I mean, that's obvious. Money in the bank, the gig's booked. So each one of these numbers, those can tell you something. They can actually tell you things to actually improve your sales process and get better. So think about it. Like, what do these numbers tell you? Like, what do these numbers tell you? Each one of them tells you something. Let's take a look at the leads. So the leads basically tells you, are you putting in the work? Because most of you guys, you're just not putting in the damn work. Like I said, if I were to actually look at how many leads, how many events you've actually built up for the day, it's like most people, the events would be zero. Like they haven't built up a list of any events. And what happens, they're like, well, I don't know like which events pay, but what do I say? And they have all kinds of excuses as to why they haven't built up a list of events that they could contact. So if you know that, hey, your number for the day is zero, if you know that you don't have any leads, well, how could you possibly expect to get booked? And so the leads, when you keep track of this number, it just tells you, are you putting in the work or are you faking it? Like, which one are you doing? So that's what that number tells you. Then there's the second one, contacted. So contacted, it just tells you, are you talking to enough events? So let's say you built up a list of 50 leads and you contacted 2 of them. Well, do you think you're going to get booked if you only contacted 2 events? That's not enough to actually get booked. And so contacted just tells you like, hey, are you talking to enough events? And then there's the other one. Other one is responded. So let's say, did they respond to you? Is basically, did they read your first email? So it's like, okay, you built up a list of leads that tells you you're doing the work. Then you contacted them. Okay, maybe you're contacting enough, maybe not, but you contacted events and then they responded. Now it kind of says, okay, well, they read your email. So this tells you, even within the respond, it tells you, did they open the email? That says your subject line, it worked. Whatever you wrote in the subject line, it worked to get them to open the email. Then they read the email, and if they responded, that means it's like, okay, cool. All right, it's working. They actually read my email. Now I just need to get better at writing the emails. So that's kind of what responded tells you. Then there's opportunities. So how many of them not only responded, but actually expressed some type of interest in some type of way? What this tells you with the number of opportunities you had, it tells you, is your website good enough to get their interest? Because when you send that email, you're contacting them, you're like, hey, I'm the greatest speaker alive. You're like, check out the website. And they take a look at the website and they respond. They're like, huh, what do you charge? Well, that tells you your website is doing its job. It tells you it worked. But if they actually, like, if they respond and they keep saying no, or they don't respond in any way, that tells you, hey, you need a better website. So like, let's say that you look into your numbers and you see that they opened the email, which tells you the subject line worked. They read the email. Okay, cool. And they responded saying, hey, well, what do you charge? That tells you it's working. But on the other hand, let's say they opened the email, but they didn't respond back. And not only that, they didn't respond back by saying, what do you charge or anything like that. They just didn't respond back. What does that tell you? That tells you that whatever you wrote in the email, that pitch, it doesn't work. So you need to change it. Now, let's say they opened the email, they read the email, and they responded, but then they said no. So now it kind of tells you, well, your website's probably not good enough. And so that's what these numbers are telling you. And then obviously, the last one, gigs booked, that just tells you that the entire sales process is working. So each one of these numbers, it tells you something. So you want to keep track of the right numbers. You need to understand that to book 50 plus events a year, you have to use the easy way. Like there's no question about it. To book 50 or more events per year, you have to do it the easy way. And guess what? The hard way is the easy way. See, you like that one. You like that one, huh? The hard way is the easy way. To book gigs, it really just comes down to that. And so here's what's going to happen to you mentally. Like when you're kind of not prepared for this, here's what's going to happen to you mentally. In the beginning, you're going to be happy as all hell. You're going to be like, yeah, I got a new process for getting gigs. Yeah. All right. Cold calling, cold email. I got a new process. You're going to do the happy dance. You're going to do the wiggle because you're all excited. You're like, all right, man, I got this new method of actually getting gigs. I understand it. Like you're all excited. And then you're going to start kind of doing it. Like you're going to go from happy dance to worker bee. You're going to start doing it. You're going to be like, huh, It's going to be a little bit different than what you kind of imagine, because you're going to start sending those emails, start contacting the events. And it's not the fun part. You're like, oh, someone told me I need to only be doing what I love. I don't really love this stuff, man. It's kind of boring. And so it's like, you're sitting there, you're doing the work. And then all of a sudden, guess what happens as you're contacting them? People aren't going to say yes immediately. You're going to contact all these people, but they're not going to immediately say, hey, yeah, sure, why not? We'll book you for $10,000. They don't just say yes immediately, because there's all kinds of things you could be doing wrong. Maybe your website isn't good. Maybe your email pitch is really bad. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you could possibly be doing wrong. So understand this: just because you're doing the right things doesn't mean you're doing those things right. So truly, truly understand this. Just because you're doing outreach, just because you're sending a cold email, that doesn't mean you're doing it the right way. All you got to do is go to your LinkedIn page, go to your LinkedIn, and just check your messages. You'll see examples of badass cold emails. People who just copy and paste a cold email. You don't respond because you know they just copied and pasted it and sent it to everybody and their mama. So you're like, man, what the hell? And so these are people who are doing the right things, aka reaching out, but they're doing it the wrong way, aka just copying and pasting a damn email template so you don't respond. So that's what could be happening in the beginning. So you're sitting there, your cold email, and people aren't responding to you immediately. They're not like, yeah, let's book you. And then what happens after that, after they don't respond immediately, you're frustrated as all hell. You're like, damn it. So you're sitting there frustrated. You're getting pissed off because you're like, man, what the hell? And this is where a little bit of self-doubt creeps in, because you're like, oh, it's not really working. So now you start questioning it. The self-doubt creeps in. And when the self-doubt creeps in, instead of you contacting 100 events a day, you start contacting only 10 events a day, maybe, or like 5 events. You start to decrease the number of people. You start to go a whole lot slower at this point. Now you're like your turtle status. You're like the Ninja Turtles. Well, no, they were cool. But now you're going really, really slow at this point, because the self-doubt creeped in. Instead of you contacting a lot of people every day, you're contacting very little. And so you're going too slow. And because you go too slow, well, what happens after that? You get really, really demotivated. And at that point, during the demotivation phase, this is when you kind of just stop everything altogether. You started cold emailing. After about a week, you've given up. Like after like a week, you're like, all right, let me cold email. Remember, you're happy. You're like, let me cold email. Then you get down, you start doing the work. And then it feels like work at this point. And now all of a sudden you don't get the responses that you expected. It's going a lot slower than you thought. There's self-doubt that's creeping in. And now you just stop. Now you're just like, man, this stuff doesn't work. And that's what happened. Man, it doesn't work. And so you're kind of pissed off at this point. So what do you do at this point? So because you don't think any of this stuff actually works, what do? You go to Google and you do a Google search in terms of how to get speaking gigs, or you do some type of search, how to get speaking engagement, how to get on more stages. You do some type of Google search and you read all kinds of articles. Remember the articles from before? You read all kinds of stuff about things you possibly could do. And then all of a sudden, what do you see? You see, oh, podcast. How about we create some video content? How about you write a best-selling book? How about you create an online video course? And so you see all these different methods that you could do. And then what do? You get all excited because you're like, cold email doesn't work. Outreach doesn't work. I don't know why I listen to that dude. And then you pick one of them. Let's say, I don't know, online course. You're like, let me do an online course. And then what happens when you pick another one, another method? Well, now you kind of go back to the beginning. You go back to the beginning because you're excited. Now you're excited. You're like, yeah, I'm going to start with this online course thing. I'm going to start creating some video content. Once I do that, I'm going to be a big dog. And then once I'm a big dog, oh my goodness, everyone's going to love me. And then everyone loves me. And then also I'm going to get speaking gigs. And so it's like, now you're excited because you picked a new thing. Then you're going to go through the cycle over and over and over again, from excited to doing the actual work. Like, damn, this is a little different than I thought. All of a sudden people aren't responding the way you thought they would. Maybe they're not buying your course or whatever. Then all of a sudden you kind of get self-doubt. Now you start going really slow, and then all of a sudden you're just demotivated at this point. You're like, damn it, that doesn't work either. Damn it, podcast stuff doesn't work. Damn it, video content doesn't work. Damn it, I wrote my book and nobody booked me. Damn it, I freaking created video content, nobody's buying the damn thing. And it's like you're kind of going in this repetitive cycle over and over and over again. And you need to be very wary of this, in terms of just being aware of this, in terms of what can happen to you mentally if you're not prepared for the work. If you're not prepared for the work and you don't get help, you simply will go through this cycle. I guarantee it. So be prepared for the work, okay? And you're simply just going to pick a different one. You're like, let me pick podcast this time. So be prepared for the work. So there's no way around the work. That's just a fact. There's literally no way around the work. You can sit down. Most people are sitting down, chilling. Oh, book gigs for me. And so that's not what you want to do. I mean, if you want to get booked on stages, you can't be that guy. You can't be that speaker who's sitting down hoping everybody's going to book gigs for him. If you want to get booked on more stages, you have to get focused, systematic, and you have to have an insane work ethic. There's no way around it. Literally no way around these three. If you're not focused, if you're doing a podcast and you're creating video content, and you're writing a book and you're trying to do workshops and you're trying to get paid gigs and you're trying to do an online course, you're trying to do all this stuff, none of it is going to work out for you because you're simply doing too much. And then all of a sudden, if you pick one, you got to now get systematic within it. So now all of a sudden you want paid gigs. Well, do you have a CRM setup? Do you have a sales cadence setup? Do you have a lead score setup? Do you have the email template set up? Do you have a sales pipeline set up? Do you understand how you're going to find events? Is that in a Google document? Do you understand all this stuff? Like, you got to have a systematic process so it's repetitive. It's over and over and over till you do the same thing, and then bam, you get the gig. Then you got to have an insane work ethic to where it's like, look, people keep saying this whole thing of only do what you love. That's not how it works. It's do what you must. In the beginning, you do what you must, so eventually you can do what you love. In the beginning, you will absolutely have to do things you hate. You will sit down and you will have to reach out to events. It will be boring as all hell. You will hate it, but you need an insane level of work ethic. Because when you get excited about getting booked, you're going to get excited, then you're going to start doing the work. Then you're going to be like, oh, damn, this is way different than I thought. This is way different than I imagined. And then that's when you naturally, the demotivation, self-doubt, all that stuff creeps in. You need to have an insane work ethic if you want to get booked on stages. That's just what it comes down to. There's no way around it. The tactics and the techniques, those are the easy part. It's easy, tactics and techniques. Who cares about those? That's the easy part. You need to understand that a simple decision can alter the course of your life. One decision. That's it. You need to, literally just one decision can alter the course of your entire life. And so imagine if you went to, let's say, imagine you went to a different high school or college. Think about how you wouldn't have met certain people in your life. One decision literally altered the course of your life. And so this is why you have to get focused. You have to get systematic. You need that work ethic. Maybe you need to get more focused. Maybe you need to be systematic with your speaking business, and maybe that you need a more intense work ethic. Either way, I want to point this out. I want you to point out that our SpeakPro Academy training, it can help you. It can literally help you get booked on stages. Okay, so if you do those three things, you will get booked on stages. So if you're the type of speaker that would fit in with the SpeakPro Academy, then I want you to fill out the application below, or click the button below, and that'll lead you to the application. So that way we can actually talk about what you're looking to accomplish. And at the end of the call, we're going to ask you if you want to join the SpeakPro Academy. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if you're a good fit. Everyone tells me, everybody and their mama tells me that they're going to be more focused. They tell me that they're going to implement the training, and they tell me they're going to work hard. They're like, I got an insane work ethic. And then reality hits them, and it's a very different story. I've heard every excuse in the book. They're like, I'm based every excuse in the book. Now, I'm not here to baby you. I'm here to show you the reality of what it takes to fill up your speaking schedule. You either do it or you don't. It's that simple. So on our phone call is just going to be, it's more of a fact-finding mission. It's more fact-finding for me personally. So we're going to basically take notes on you and see how we can help you out if you join the program, because everybody's different. So maybe you want to get more paid gigs. Maybe you just want to get on more stages to generate leads, or maybe you just want to build a speaking brand, whatever it is. Everyone's different, and that's why we're going to talk about it on our phone call. So we won't pressure you into joining. You either join or you don't. It's really that simple. And I'm not going to act like this is some special application where only a select few get in, like, those fake people who do all that stuff. It's not like, okay, only a select few are going to get in. If you invest, you get in. It's that simple. And it's $2,000 per year or $5,000 for a lifetime access. Now, I don't care if you're a pro already or if you're just starting. I can help you grow your speaking business. That's just a fact. I can get you booked on more stages. That's a fact. So this call is literally for me to learn more about you. You're going to get everything that you need to fill up your speaking schedule consistently. You'll get access to all the training in the members area. You'll get support inside of our Facebook group. And of course, you get all the email templates and all the resources, so you don't have to create it on your own. So you just copy and paste what we use. So you get everything to fill up your speaking schedule. So now's the time for you to make that decision, that decision that can alter the course of your entire life. Fill out the application to the SpeakPro Academy, schedule a phone call, and at the end of our call, I'm going to ask you if you want to join. If you do, great, get ready to work. If you don't, no problem, best of luck to you. But this is the time to make a decision. And I want you to remember this moment because I want to make this moment the best decision you have ever made in your life. I want you to be able to brag about this moment to people. Like when you're getting interviewed and someone says, what was the moment that changed your life? And you can literally point out this moment. You can be like, well, there was this guy. I got a video from this person. I want that to be this moment. You have no idea what's about to happen to you if you invest in the SpeakPro Academy and you implement it. You have no idea. I mean, if you focus, if you build the systems for your speaking business, you put in the work, you have no idea what's about to happen. So click the button below, fill out the application and schedule your call, and let's get it.